At Data Futurology, we love creating events that can help you overcome the challenges that you're facing in your work, in your organizations right now. So I wanted to quickly tell you about a free webinar around accelerating MLOps. This is on the 26th of July at 11 a.m. We're going to be sitting with Romina Sharifpour from AWS, and she's going to tell us about how carsales.com.au was able to use their SageMaker platform to improve the creation, deployment, and operationalization of their machine learning models. So come join us for that really exciting webinar. For more details, please check datafuturology.com/events. Thanks so much. Hope to see you there.
I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading specialist data recruitment business. With offices in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, they're experts at providing recruitment strategy and building data teams for clients across industries Australia-wide. They provide recruitment solutions for all roles across the data lifecycle, including data engineering, data science, advanced analytics, customer and marketing insights, business intelligence, data product managers, and data governance. They're skilled at finding the best permanent and contract hires for your business needs, as well as statement of work, project focus, data resources. At Talent Insights, relationships matter most. I can say from first-hand experience, Talent Insights are fantastic to work with. Whether you're a business leader within an HR network or a specialist data candidate, Talent Insights should be the first company you turn to for all your data recruitment needs. Find them at talentinsights.com.au.
Hi, welcome. This is Felipe Flores. Welcome to Data Futurology. Today, I'm sitting down with a very special guest. Edward Chenard is joining us today. He is the Senior Director of Data Science and Analytics at Shipwell. Edward, how are you going today?
Today is a very good day. Thank you.
Mate, thank you so much for making the time. It's great to see you. I'm really looking forward to spending some time picking your brain, hearing about your experiences, your insights. I know that there is a wealth of knowledge there, so I'm keen to get started. I guess first of all, could you tell us your role and your remit in the organization at the moment, and then we can jump in from there.
Yeah, so I work at Shipwell, which is a logistics company. We help, really the way I look at it is we really build experiences for people by ensuring that they have the food, clothing, and other products that they need to live the life they want to live. I know a lot of other people just look at it just moving freight around, but really that's what we're doing. And then we work with a lot of great brands out there like Spindrift, Kielbasa, that, some people probably run into, at least here in the US. And my team, we really run it as a small, tight-knit group of data scientists and analysts and soon engineers and more data scientists. But we look at ourselves as sort of that forward-looking team for the rest of the organization, where we're really trying to figure out, hey, what's the future here? And how do we help build that? And how do we help our customers achieve what they're looking for through, could be something as simple as just automating a process or helping them predict how's their market going to perform in the next 6 months. So it's actually a very exciting space to be in. I used to be in logistics and I used to think it was boring, but thanks to the pandemic, it's really become a really interesting space to be in.
Yeah, right. It's accelerated things so much, the digitization, and then by extension, the application of our set of experiences and technologies or capabilities, I should say, it's definitely opening new doors in the industry. I wanted to ask you, since you mentioned that you have analysts and data scientists and soon engineers, how do you find the process of getting support and investment for the engineering space? And I ask particularly because I know that I have a hard time getting interest to invest in the engineering space within data analytics. That I find it much easier to get support and investment to get data scientists, data analysts, insights analysts, etc. Way easier than engineers. So I wanted to get your thoughts. How do you find the process, and do you have much of a difference?
There is a difference, and what I found is the analyst and the data scientist, they're sort of the cool, sexy roles that every company wants to have, and the data engineers are kind of the unsung heroes in the background. And what I've always pointed out is, if you want to move fast, you want to move smoothly, you need data engineers. There's a lot of analysts, data scientists that claim they can do the data engineering portion. And some of them can kind of do it. And I've met a very few that can do the engineering side just as well as a data engineer. But you really want somebody that can be in the background, just maintaining that stack, keeping things moving. I like to make the distinction that the data engineers are the plumbers. They're keeping everything working. Think of the data scientists and the analysts as the scientists doing the chemical analysis on what's flowing through the pipes. So, yeah, they're really good at analyzing what's in the pipes, but if the pipe breaks, they may not be able to fix it.
Yeah.
And if that pipe breaks, if you're at a large company, even just a couple hours can cost you millions of dollars. And that's why I think they're extremely important. And yeah, we have some engineers, but just getting that more dedicated data engineer focus is something we're ramping up here.
Yeah, same for me at work. In my day job, I work in healthcare, and we have data scientists and data analysts, and we are probably at the moment we have 1 or 2 data engineers, looking to grow that. And but yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on articulating the value, I guess, which you did really well. So thank you for that. Then I wanted to jump into what the last couple of years has been, and I know that you've focused a lot on managing remote teams. So I wanted to jump into that space for a bit. How has the last couple of years been? And first, let's start there, and then we can start on on any changes that you've done throughout this period. But how have the last couple of years been for you?
Well, for me, if we just look like the last decade, I've always had remote teams as part of the mix. But except for one guy who I promised, as long as he delivered, I'd never call him into the office. Everybody at least came into the office sometimes. Since that guy always delivered, I never actually saw him in person again after I interviewed him. But once we got into the pandemic, that whole remote aspect really changed, because now it wasn't just a temporary thing where you're maybe get to stay home 2 days out of the week or something like that. It's a permanent. You're at home. I'm at home. I've been at home the last few years, and it's as you get into it, you really start to pay attention to, as time went on, how being at home and sometimes being alone for some people really started to affect them. And I realized I have to pay a lot more attention to the mental health of my team. And I also have to get a little bit more personal with my team and just understanding what it is they're doing. In the past, just like, hey, how was your weekend? Great. All right, good. All right, let's jump into work. Now it's like, what did you do this weekend? It's checking to make sure they have a life. It's also putting in metrics that I wouldn't have checked before. This week, I just actually went over time off for my team, analyzing the first 6 months. Are they taking enough time off? In the past, I never even looked at that. Are you taking enough time off? I mean, it's just amazing how, things have changed in a lot of ways where I feel in a remote environment, you really have to pay much more attention to the well-being of your team, more than you would have in the office.
Yeah, and it's you have to pay more attention, and it's obviously a much tougher to do, to be able to have that connection. That in the office you might look at somebody and say, oh, they're having a bad day, or they're a bit deflated, or you can get that sense quite quickly. So what are some ways that you've started to do that in a virtual environment with your teams?
We have one-on-ones every week. I have with everybody on my team, and they're not really work focused. I mean, yeah, we talk about work, of course, but a lot of it's just kind of shooting the breeze. I have an analyst that's going to Europe for vacation, going to Berlin. She likes chocolate. It's like, hey, you should go to the Ritter Sports Store. We can make your own. And she's like, what? I can do that? I'm like, yeah. So, we're having those conversations. Or this week as a team, we've just been talking about different types of foods, and we realize everybody on the team's like spicy food. So it's like, hey, when we do the on-site sometime at the end of the year, let's go out. Let's go get spicy food. And I said, hey, we hit our targets. I'm going to get you guys all my favorite hot sauce. Send it out to you for Christmas gifts. Those kind of conversations, it makes it much more, I think it makes work more personable. And, in the past, being in the office, there was always just this, hey, don't get too close to the team. They got to respect you. Don't be their friend. You're the boss. So keep a bit of separation. Now it's like, hey, I need to ensure that this person is feeling okay. So yeah, there are things that we do in the background. The people's team really does a great job at Shipwell, where yeah, they are telling me, hey, how much vacation time are people taking? In fact, I was told I'm not taking enough. I only took 2 days in the last 6 months.
Wow.
But everyone else is like taking a little over a week. So I'm like, hey, this is good. I know we're coming into summer, so that number will bump up dramatically. But also looking at how many meetings are they in? Are they being at a level that would burn them out? After hours meetings, how many is going on? I made it an effort to make sure we had the best after hours record in the company. So last quarter, we actually had 0 after hour meetings for my team. So
wow.
I was happy about that, because it's like, hey, yeah, I know you got a life. I'm not going to have you sitting here working at 7, 8 o'clock at night. None of that stuff. It's 5 o'clock. And we actually have what I call core hours. I try and schedule all the meetings between 10 and 4. And so I say, that's the window I will schedule. I'm not going to ask you to get up early in the morning at 6 to do stuff. I'm not going to have you stay late. Just remember, in that time period, I will schedule the meetings. And also taking an interest in their career. I'm always saying, it's like, hey, we all need money. I get that. What are you trying to get out of this job beyond the money? What is it I can do to help set you up to get that? And so everybody's different. And it's just coming up with what's that personal roadmap for them. And also giving them recognition in front of the rest of the company. We do all hands every 2 weeks. And I'm always saying hey, we had this great performance. Look at the savings we got our customers on this one product. And by the way, that was our data scientist, Drew, who created that algorithm that got these customers the savings. They like getting that kind of acknowledgement. But like I said, when it comes to the career path there, it's also a balance. You got to be really direct with them too. Sometimes it's not all fluffy stuff. Someone will say, hey, I want a 40% raise this quarter. And it's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. I understand you want more money. Let's figure out how to get you more money. What are you doing that's great? And what do you got to do to get the recognition you need to get those bigger raises? And I find that open frankness really helps. And yeah, some people find it a bit blunt, but a lot of people find it refreshing that you're giving them the honest story, and then they can trust what you're saying.
And it's so helpful. It's really kind to be able to provide that clarity, because it is hard to come by. And it sounds like even when you need to have what could be sort of big adjustments in expectations of people's thoughts or career aspirations, that you're able to do that in a really, I guess, nice and collaborative way, because of the relationship that you've established, and then the track record of openness and trust that you've been able to create.
Do any big adjustments come to mind that you could tell us on how those conversations went down?
Yeah, I have a data scientist who's pretty young, and it's been an adjustment for both of us because he's really good, but lacks confidence in himself. So it's always just slowly nudging him and saying like, hey, you did great here. This is good. And just telling him, it's like, I told him, I said, you know what? I was in my mid-30s before I actually felt like I knew what the hell I was doing. I always doubted myself too. And then you get to a point where you're just like, hey, actually, I'm doing good things. Why should I doubt myself? I said, eventually you'll hit that point too. But it's also an adjustment for me because this is like his first job out of school. And when I've built my teams in the past, I always went for more experienced people. I paid them really well, people with gray hair or no hair on their heads. So dealing with the younger people, they would come in much later into the hiring process. And usually there was a layer in between me and them. So there's a bit of an adjustment for me too, just to understand, if I'm making jokes that referencing the 90s, some of these kids look at me with blank stares like, what are you talking about?
Love it.
So I was listening to the radio and I heard this song. I said, yeah, I heard this song for the first time. Never heard it before. And one of the kids, he goes, oh yeah, that came out in 2003. I was in elementary school. I was like, geez, I was in grad school.
Oh God. Yeah. No, those comments definitely hurt. But that's really nice in terms of nudging people when they need it to have greater confidence in themselves. That then obviously helps them feel better and be a little bit more visible if they want to.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a challenge in a remote world, because how do you really motivate someone when you can't sit there and have a lot of those conversations you would have had in the past? And that's where those one-on-ones come into play, just having it much more of a coffee chat, really. Not so much chatting about lots of different things. That particular data scientist, like, we were talking about like hot sauce, and he lives in Austin. I live in Minnesota. So I was, he's talking about all this stuff. I go, well, I live in Minnesota. Anything hotter than a bell pepper, most people up here think is too hot. So I don't got the selection you do.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I had a senior data scientist that for a while was adamant that he wanted to become a manager, and he was like, I want to do it. And we worked on a very similar structure and identifying what they were doing well, identifying the areas where they needed to grow a little bit, and came up with a plan. Then came the experience. So we trialed it, had a lot of feedback through the trial, did, I want to say, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years of trying and adjusting. And then at the end, we both came to the conclusion, was like, maybe either not or not yet. And he, through the process, he really realized that he loves being an expert, loves being deep into the tools, deep into the problems, the problem solving. And it was what surprised me about the process is that it brought us closer together to go through it, and in a transparent manner, how you were talking about the approach that you take. Taking that approach has brought us closer together, giving us a better understanding of each other, of how we can collaborate. And throughout the whole process, our working relationship got better and better, and continues to do that today. But it doesn't mean that everyone will sort of get everything that they necessarily want, but it's about exploring those options and seeing whether it's a right fit, and making sure that people are engaged and challenged and happy.
It was
interesting.
So there you go.
I think that a lot of people in the data and analytics space make the mistake thinking that leadership is just an extension of what they're doing as an individual contributor. And this is something I hired a guy about a month ago, 2 weeks in. So the other members of the team were telling me, hey, you got to talk to him. Sounds like he's got some questions. So I was like, hey, you got any questions for him? He's like, no, not really. I go, that's not what I'm hearing. Want to talk? He's like, I'm still trying to figure you out. And so we started talking and we came down to leadership style. And I said, hey, look, as an individual contributor, your role is completely different from mine. I said, what I spend my time focusing on is so different from yours. It's almost like, are we even on the same team sometimes? And I said, your job is really about control. You got to control the model, the data, the processes. My job is really about accountability. I don't control people because to me, that never ends well. I don't like being controlled. I don't think most people like being controlled. They like being able to express themselves and have their experience that they're trying to live. My job is to figure out, how do I facilitate that experience they want with a benefit for the company and the customers? Where's that crossover where we can all benefit? And figuring out how to be responsible for that process in the team. I said, that's really my job. I said, I don't control, because he came from an environment where he was kind of used to being told, okay, after step one, do step two, step three. And I'm like, no, I hired you to, I frame the problems up for you. I work with you on that. We understand all the assumptions. Then you go put your brain power to figure out what is the solution. I said, that's what I'm hiring for. And I said, you know what? That's part of the human experience. There's always going to be a little struggle. This utopia of everything great. I said, I don't think I'd ever want to live in that world.
Yeah.
I said, the things that I look back and say, I feel good about that, what I accomplished. Yeah, there was some struggle there. None of it ever came easy. So I said, that's part of this whole process of working on this team too. We're solving problems, tough problems. And when you get through the other end and you got the solution, you're going to feel great.
That's great. That is a great lesson. That it's going to continue to pay dividends for the rest of their career. Essentially, to own the problem and be proactive about putting your mental energy into the solutions and bringing something new to the world. And then additionally, understanding the differences between the work of a team member versus the work of the leader, which, as you said, like it's so different that at least I feel, and keen to get your thoughts, the working as an individual contributor in this space doesn't really prepare us for the leadership positions. I think that there's big gaps there, and I'm not sure how we can better address those gaps and better prepare people for the ones that do want to make that jump. I sometimes sit with team members that they come and ask me, or we start discussing. They're like, "What is a day in your life look like?" And I was telling them, definitely focusing on accountability, focusing on the relationship side, focusing on almost like the marketing of analytics capabilities and the returns that we've been able to create for the organization, and continue to find areas of further development through that. And they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm totally getting them to see the difference." But keen on your thoughts, Edward. What do you think about how we can better prepare leaders in our space?
I often think the focus of a lot of the schools is completely incorrect, at least where I live. And they don't like me when I bring that up. But I find that they focus so much on like coding and tech stacks. And I'm like, yeah, that's important. But like right now, we're hiring for a senior data scientist. And when I was talking to recruiting, I said, look, no matter what level, they're at, to be successful in this space, I think they need three things, whether you're the leader or a junior data scientist. First is creativity. If you don't look at this space as a creative endeavor, I don't think you'll be happy, because I just look at it as like, problems we solve are always about how do you really look at it from outside the box? I mean, yeah, we could create another Me Too recommender that just everybody else has, but how do we create something that's unique that really resonates with customers? Everyone always talks about Uber and they created this app that, automated getting a taxi. Well, no, that already existed. They removed uncertainty. So they thought a little bit outside the box. There was creativity there. So, you can look on the map, see when your car is arriving, and you can see who the driver is, what the car is. They removed the uncertainty. That was really the magic, in my opinion. The other is they got to have curiosity. If you're not naturally going out there, just looking up stuff, going down different rabbit holes, exploring things, I do this all the time. And then all of a sudden it's like 4 hours go by and you're like, oh, well, there goes my afternoon. But that's a good thing in this space you see that. I've got data scientists where, like, today they were like, one of them was showing me he was getting a little creative with k-means clustering because he had read some very variable ways to use it, and I was just like, well, yeah, this is interesting. And it's like, now let's figure out how can we actually apply this to the business case we're trying to use this for. And the last one is also openness to other perspectives. And I always tell the team, I was like, look, you don't have to agree, but you have to acknowledge it and say, yeah, I see that perspective, and here's the values I see out of it, and here's where I think there's some detractors to it. But don't just sit there and outright say, nah, you're wrong. That's a stupid idea. So you got to entertain it. And I said, never start with the negatives. I was like, look, there's a lot of ideas I worked on where if you looked at it, 90% of it just sounded like a crazy, stupid idea. But that 10% that wasn't, that's where the money was.
Yeah.
And I think at whatever level you're at, if you've got those three things in spades, you'll do great. So I think that's something we need to focus on. For me, myself, I like hiring physics majors because they're really good at problem solving, and philosophy majors because they're also really good at problem solving, but they solve problems in very different ways. You put those two together, yeah, you've got a good combo.
Very, very interesting. I haven't hired philosophy majors actually in this space. I've worked with, I want to say one, but yeah, I haven't.
That's the thing. The physics majors you find left and right. The philosophy majors you don't, and that's because of their own choosing not to be in the space. And I think to their detriment, because when you really start thinking about where things are going, like particularly in the retail space, a lot of behavioral science, social sciences should be in the mix, but also understanding is like, hey, what's the overall impact from a social perspective of what it is we're doing here? When I was at Target, I worked on a project where we were trying to figure out devices tied to a household level. And we got to like an 80% accuracy rate, which is pretty good. At the time, the vendors were like 30%. And then the question was, hey, tell us who in the household is using that, even though they're not logged in. I'm like, time out here. Time for a little philosophical debate about how creepy that is.
Yeah.
I said, imagine I come to your house and say, hey, you were looking at this, and by the way, your wife was looking at that. None of you were logged in. You're going to be like, how the hell did you know that? And maybe I shouldn't be going to your website.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of aspects, like when it comes to just how far should you really take it? Getting into morality, ethics, philosophy, I think comes into play. Plus, for me, I found if you take a lot of philosophical terms and concepts and apply them to data, they actually make a lot of sense to explain what's going on. So, like the Diderot effect is a good one. Basically, this guy who helped make the first encyclopedia, and he was given a bunch of money, bought himself a nice robe. Everything else he had looked like crap compared to his new robe. So he went out, blew all his cash on new stuff, and ended up back to being poor. Well, think about it from a lot of tech teams. I've seen this over and over again, where it's like they put in their Spark cluster, Hadoop cluster. It does what they want. It's all cool. Then they just go on this spending spree, and then, hey, let's go into the cloud. Let's do crunch computing in the cloud. And then they get their first AWS bill, and it's like, oh, that's a lot bigger than we were quoted. It's essentially the same the Diderot concept in technology. And it's like, hey, are you cognizant of this, that you're falling into this trap? And like when you go to IKEA, they've got those rooms designed. You go in there for a lamp and you walk out with a bunch of other stuff because, like, oh, well, this looks good and that looks good. I like how that looks in that room. Oh yeah, so true. I found that philosophy concepts are really good to help, especially when you're talking to people that are not in the space. It just helps to translate things very well.
Yes, that's such a great point. And you yourself studied on the humanities side with your studies, is that right? How did you find the transition into the more analytical side?
My undergrad is in international business and language studies as a double major, and a minor in theology.
Nice.
Which so I went to a Catholic school, so you kind of got it. If you just took a couple more classes, you got a minor in theology. I actually found it a really fun subject to study. It's like for every question you answer, you get another 3 to take its place. And so my first job was actually as a market analyst in Europe, and was in the Netherlands and then Spain. And I actually found that education was very helpful, because I felt that a liberal arts degree that I got really taught me how to think. So I could really ask the questions and really work through the process and understand what's actually going on here and what should be the end state. And that's still true today, what I'm doing. It's like, hey, what's the future of logistics? Well, that's a tough question, especially in this volatile world. So you got to think through and really weigh all those variables. It's not a simple math equation. It's really how is the war in Ukraine affecting everything? What happens if China starts shutting ports down? What happens if the railroad union goes on strike next month, like some people are saying? Yeah, how does that affect everything? These are variables you have to weigh and really think through. And I really feel that in some ways, the world that we live in around data and digital is actually a detriment to a lot of people, because it's so easy to go online, just do some searching, where I think that if you really take the time to do some deep thinking, it's much better for you. So I go for a walk most mornings for about an hour and a half out in the woods. I run into more deer than people, and it's just a great time just to think about a topic, and, just spend 90 minutes just really thinking about it. I have my phone just track my steps, but other than that, I'm not using it. And I think a lot of people need to do that more often. There's a great book called The Shallows by Nicholas Carr, who goes into just how technology kind of just dumbs us down. And I'm like, yeah, he's right. Taking time to just step away from the screen is really important.
I completely agree. And I find myself, I find myself sometimes just thinking, oh, somebody's figured this out, I'll just look it up. Where it would be way more rewarding cognitively to spend the sometimes short amount of time that it would take to cross that bridge.
I do that with my team. I tell them, I say, I always tell them, because if you looked at my schedule, you just see like back-to-back meetings like all day. And I tell them, don't be like me. Work 90 minutes, then step away from the computer and go do something else. Get your mind away from work. I was like, look, if you want an ice cream, get an ice cream. If you want to go to the walk or the gym, do that, but get away from the screen.
Yeah.
and go do something else. And I'm pretty adamant about that. So when we do the ones-on-ones, I'm always looking at their schedule and being like, looks like you're kind of back to back here on Thursday. What's going on? Maybe you should take a little time on Thursday just to put a focus time block in there. And just, I was like, I don't care if you're online or not. Because, I always tell them, get your stuff done on time. I don't need you sitting there at your desk from 9 to 5. Get your stuff done on time. You figure out your schedule and what works best for you. And, allowing that flexibility, I think, really helps, but reminding them step away from the computer is also very important. And I don't think a lot of managers understand that. They just think, they got to grind it out, sit there cranking stuff out. No, their productivity will go down. They need those breaks.
Yeah, and especially if you want to be doing some creative problem solving, some innovation, bringing something new. And as you mentioned, it's one of the core tenets of our space, the creativity side. You need that that downtime, that unplug and relaxation to be able to fuel that. And I think that with the fact that you've organized core time where the meetings will be scheduled, you kind of inherently create a bit of focus time there every day, where people know that they won't be having a meeting until at least 10, and then that after 4 there is no more meetings, so they can pick when to have some longer schedule time, which I think is fantastic. I think it's a really, really great practice. And also for yourself, the long walks in the woods, outstanding. That's phenomenal. Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
Oh, 2 years. It was thanks to lockdown. I mean, before that, I was just like most people, just sitting, going to work. Then you go to the gym. Yeah. But yeah, the gym shut down, and I was just like, hey, I still got to move. And I was like, well, I live in an area that's got lots of trails. So I was just looking on the map, and I just started going down the different trails, and I was like, realize, hey, there's actually like this whole wooded area I completely just drive past and ignore. That is just great to walk in. There's creeks in there. The noise from the creek just drowns out the noise of civilization. And yeah, you feel like you're far away from everybody else in there. And like I said, I'm like today, I ran into like 3 people over Amazing. an hour and a half.
Mate, that is inspirational. And very similar story for me. Like, I don't do the walk though, but there is a big bushland very close to where I live that I drive by quite often, usually kind of like mentally ignore it to go, oh yeah, it's nice in there, whatever, I gotta get somewhere. So this is really great. I know that we're coming up on time, but I did want to ask you about any about when you help people craft their career, and you spend that time understanding their goals, their ambitions, and then helping them determine next steps and areas of improvement. What are some things that you think more people should be thinking about, or a different perspective that people don't usually take when approaching a design of their career, something that you think and you've seen people benefit from? What would be something they should be thinking about?
I usually get from, doesn't matter, engineers, data scientists, analysts, when I say you got to learn to sell yourself and do some personal branding. They're like, oh, I don't do that sales and marketing stuff. That's not for me. And I'm like, yeah, I used to think that too, but you're shooting yourself in the foot when you don't do that. I'm like, I'm not telling you to go out there and brag. I'm just telling you to go out there and acknowledge what you've done and just let the evidence speak for itself. So the metrics are really important. And so I said, let the numbers do the talking for you. So I said, yeah, you can sit there and say, I did this, I did that. But if you start throwing out numbers and say, here was the impact, here's the results, I was like, that's going to do the selling for you. And it's going to be a lot easier for you. So yeah, and we really focus on impact metrics. So all our key metrics are focused on how are we influencing our customer. we don't got anything about like uptime, how fast the model runs, how many story points or features we did. I'm like, nobody cares. I said, no customer cares. Yeah. They want to know. It's like, yeah, we've got an optimizer tool at Shipwell. We've saved customers hundreds of thousands of dollars in just a couple months. We're saving hundreds of tons of carbon by helping them optimize their routes. So they're like, hey, we can talk about this as sustainability. And it's like, yeah. And I'm like sitting there going, we're saving hundreds of tons of carbon. I don't know. To me, that sounds like a lot. And it's not like we've got like hundreds of customers. We're talking, because I mean, we just launched this thing. So we're talking just dozens. But as we can show that, I'm like, look, you can take these numbers and show, hey, I built this, I created this impact.
Yeah.
And I said, it makes selling what you've done and what your value is a lot easier because you let the numbers speak for you.
Yes. And what changed your mind that took you from thinking, oh, I don't do that, to now seeing the benefits?
So the last recession, I kind of was just, I was doing international business, went to grad school for that too. Was really good in grad school, and life was just kind of good, coasting by, enjoying things, not really having too much to worry about. Then the recession hit, and I got taken out in the fourth round of layoffs. And I'm looking around, and I'm saying, there are people with way more experience than me who could dance circles around me in terms of their experience, who are struggling. What am I doing to show my value? And you have to really take an honest look and make those adjustments. And that's really how I got into this whole space too. It's just, I was working at a small company, and then somebody from Best Buy in the area where I live, we were talking personalization. I went in for an interview, got the role. And as they said, you're going to build out personalization. And I started looking at big data, data science. And this is 2011. I said, this is the future. I'm putting my bets here. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're really smart. I was like, smart and lucky. Let's not forget the role of luck.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that person who's arrogant and says, yeah, I figured it all out. It's like, no, there's luck in there. So I rode that wave. I hit that wave just perfect. And the decisions I made at Best Buy were right. I mean, we were making money hand over fist. We processed more data than the rest of the company combined. Wow. We were part of their turnaround strategy, and people noticed that. And my career just kind of took off in this space. And then after a while, I just got tired of being in the big companies. I wanted to do stuff because I felt like I was doing corporate politics.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm at a smaller company now. And it's fun. There's not going to say it's stress-free. I mean, there's always a challenge to deal with in a small company, but I feel like, a company like Shipwell, it's in a good position, and, it's a fun group of people to work with.
Right. I love it. That is really, really insightful around getting people to think about an area that they often reject, sometimes rejecting without exploring it, in terms of being able to talk about the impact and the value that they're providing. I think that's great. The focus on impact and value is also excellent, instead of focus on activity. Focusing on the outputs, and what it does for the organization is fantastic. And it's definitely something that more people should consider, regardless of their level, because at the leadership perspective, it helps you provide structure to the team. So you're going to say?
I think the most important thing that I would say to anybody is, so some people, they're like, well, you're a data scientist. I said, no, and I never called myself one. Data science is a tool I use to help create experiences. If anything, I craft experiences and I help people find the experience that they're looking for. Because at the end of the day, what am I really selling? If it's logistics, retail, financial services, you name it, I'm selling an experience. Look, nobody buys an Xbox just to have it sit in their living room and say, check it out, I got an Xbox. Here it's like, when it snows, you got the kids contained, they're going to tear the house up. You got the 20-year-old thinking about playing the latest Call of Duty against their friends. It's an experience they're buying. Same thing when I'm shipping food to a store. We're heading into Father's Day here this weekend. What am I doing? Hey, making sure that there's enough steaks and brats for them to do their grilling. Making sure that they can go to the beach and not get sunburned. I'm helping sell experiences. And to me, that's really exciting. And that to me is much bigger than just saying, well, I'm just working on this algorithm. No, I'm actually impacting people's lives. And I like that aspect of it. And I think when you think about it that way, it really gives purpose and meaning to your work. And that's what I try and instill in my team. It's like, hey, we're actually doing something here. We're not just making algorithms, doing ETLs on data. We're impacting people's lives. And and it's also, there's a responsibility to it. You can't just sit there saying, I'll do this later, or so what, it failed. It's a good learning experience. It's like that failure may have cost somebody something. Yeah. What did it cost them? And the same thing with my customers, direct customers, the businesses. Who's that logistics manager that I'm trying to help? Some of these people, they're just kind of given that title. I got to help them look good and feel like they're confident in their role by giving them the right tools and the right data and information that they can take action on. So they go to their CFO and CEO and say, hey, we should make this decision because of X, Y, and Z information I'm getting here. They look good. They feel good. And then they want to do business with us more. That, I think, when you have that mindset, that's what makes things really exciting and fun, instead of just saying like, I'm working on algorithms.
Yeah. So true. So true. And that's something else that I'm taking away from our conversation is the focus on reducing uncertainty through our work, and taking that at a broader context level.
That goes to that experience. If I'm trying to help you have an experience, I have to remove uncertainty.
It's inspirational. It's like literally, all of the data science work, data analytics work can be seen in this lens, and it helps expand the mindset, the focus and the perspective of people to care about the humans on the other end, to have a bigger impact, to kind of like shorten the gap between start to finish when you think about what the end result is actually going to be. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's what makes it fun. That's why I'm still in it 10 plus years later.
I love it. Well, that is an excellent note to end on. Edward, I want to thank you so much for your time, for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your insights. They're truly, truly phenomenal, super valuable. And I think we have all gotten a lot out of this conversation. I know I definitely have. So thank you so much for everything you shared with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope that you got a lot out of this discussion. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find out about the challenges that leaders have in the analytics and AI space. And that's what we're trying to share in Data Futurology. So please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Thank you so much.